Hello, I'm glad you're here with me today. I'm excited to introduce and educate you on a company by the name of Nucor Corporation. I have worked at Nucor Corporation for over 24 years at the Fastener Division. My name is Dana Strock. Nucor Corporation is a company that stands on strong U.S. manufacturing values, and throughout the presentation today, you will see those values. We're going to start off today with the history of Nucor Corporation. Then we'll go into the growth and the plan for diversity that made them the market leaders that they are today. We'll then next go into what Nucor looks like and actually the products and steel that they actually produce. Then we'll go into why investors should invest in Nucor Corporation. And then we'll go into also who drives the ship of Nucor Corporation, what the leadership looks like. We'll also cover the culture of Nucor Corporation that involves safety and what their mission is. We'll go into the corporate beliefs of Nucor Corporation and their strengths and weaknesses. And then we'll wrap up with some recommendations that I see through the business research that I have done on this company. And then we'll show the conclusions of this presentation. So I am glad you're here today, and we'll get started. Nucor Corporation is North America's most diversified steel and steel products company, and they're also the nation's largest recycler. Like I said before, they're a very strong American-based manufacturing company, and they have that mentality. If you go to the divisions of Nucor Corporation, they actually have a large steel American flag that's ingrained in the sides of the building. It makes you very proud to be an American and to see them as that strong American manufacturer. So it's just a really cool thing to see that when you drive up to those divisions. They are very strong financially as well. We'll go into that through the history, but that's one of their main points that they hang their hat on, is their strong financial stability. The strong presence in Washington, D.C., as they have many lobbyists fighting for what they feel is right for all American manufacturers, not just steel or steel products, but all U.S. manufacturers and actually U.S. labor force as well. For all the people who are here in America working hard and going to work every day, they really do have lobbyists working nonstop in Washington to cover those type of things. So they are located in Charlotte, North Carolina. That's where their corporate division is. They have tons of divisions, and we'll go into that later too, but they are located in Charlotte, North Carolina. The history and events that helped Nucor change the face of the steel industry in which they lead. It's very interesting because in 1962, Ransom E. Olds, who is actually the creator of Oldsmobile, created REO Motor Company. Then he acquired Volcraft, who actually makes steel joists. And this company then evolved into a nuclear corporation. It was called Nucor Nuclear Corporation of America, and ultimately that becomes Nucor Corporation. Like I said, Volcraft, who makes steel joist, was acquired by REO Motor Company in 1962. In 1965, a gentleman by the name of Ken Iverson became CEO of this company. He is the true creator of what Nucor is today, and that culture that still exists today is from the foundation and basis of this man. Iverson realized that over 80% of the steel that they were needing to make their products was being imported. So he decided to seize that opportunity, and he built the first Nucor mini mill in 1969. And only just a few years later, in 1971, they did rename the company Nucor Corporation, which is what it still is today. In 1981, the diversity began by adding steel products, and they continue to add things today, divisions, products, things that kind of tie into that wheelhouse of what Nucor is and being steel-based. In 1986, they actually built a fastener company, which is where I am employed. 1997, they built their first metal building company, and that's known as Nucor Building. That's here. Both of those, Fastener and Nucor Building and a Volcraft, are right here in DeKalb County in Northeast Indiana. That's just one of the divisions that they have, like throughout their product breadth. And like I said, today they're still adding to this wheelhouse of corporation that they have. They also operate outside of the country in Brazil, Canada, Mexico, in the Middle East, and in the West Indies. It's crazy how this company can just acquire a company, and in a few short days they become the market leader. They can do that with the financial stability that this company has. So acquisitions for Nucor has been huge. 10 years ago, Nucor's growth was seen as the most non-challenged growth spurt. So today they're reporting $25 billion in net sales, and that has come from all the acquisitions, the smart acquisitions that they have done throughout the years. 2002 and 2008 were huge years for Nucor Corporation. In 2002, they actually acquired 3 of their largest integrated competition. The first one was Auburn Steel, and that was their very first acquisition. And then they went on to acquire Birmingham Steel, which was 5 locations within that one acquisition. And also in 2002, they acquired Trico Steel, which was 1 location. And like I said, 2008 was another very strong building year for Nucor Corporation. They acquired David J. Joseph Company, which in short we call DJJ. And what that company did for Nucor Corporation was they are a buyer, a recycler, and reseller of steel. So if you're thinking about, Nucor has steel mills and they're making steel products, well, now on the back end of that, they have acquired a company that is recycling that steel and reselling it to their own sister divisions. In essence, they have locked down their own supply chain. So from the beginning to the end, they are in control of their own domain. So that was like genius, actually, to acquire that DJJ company. Also in 2008, they had their first acquisition outside of the country. It was their first overseas, and they actually did a 50% joint venture with Duderoff, and that's in Italy. And today we are still just benchmarking and learning from each other, and it's amazing in other countries what they can do and what we can learn from their progression and from their investments in their company as well. So that's been a huge acquisition, and still learning today from that. The future is still bright for Nucor. Like I said, they're still gaining and growing. They just announced, actually just a few months ago, that they will be building a new plate mill here in the Midwest. This will create 400 new jobs, and in today's society, that's huge. With unemployment being what it is, any company that can create U.S. strong paying jobs is such a huge benefit for all of us and for our country. This facility will be actually operational in the year of 2022. So they're just beginning to get the groundwork done for that. But like I said, still growing, still gaining momentum, and still diversifying. They actually already have a plate mill in like 4 other locations, but they're doing one here in the Midwest because geographically that makes sense. They don't have anything here in the Midwest. So this will be another feather in their cap and diversifying and growing. Where Nucor began, like I said, they were first a nuclear company, but they were just Nucor, and they acquired Volcraft, Nucor. And then today, through the acquisitions, they kept that family, the family brands, the family names. So those people who were actually acquired by Nucor still had that proud namesake that they worked for, but then they were had that strong wind, I guess, underneath their sail. That would be that Nucor base of financial stability and that culture that would be ingrained into those companies that were acquired. So we have acquired quite a few metal building companies. We acquired CBC Steel Building, American Buildings, and then there's also Astroloy, and like I said earlier, DJJ was like that recycle company that we did acquire. Kirby Building Systems is another building system. We acquired Laurel Steel, Harris Rebar, which is a huge construction rebar. That's the rebar that goes into the concrete. And then you're going to see all those Nucor divisions that will have that Nucor name, and then underneath they'll tell you what they're doing, like Skyline or Fasteners or the Nucor Volcraft. So when you're in the marketplace, that's what those companies look like. Like I said, some of them kept their names, but underneath you're going to see, it's going to say a Nucor company. So that marketplace is going to know who is Nucor. What Nucor does in the steel sector, they are known for the merchant bar and rebar that they do. The engineered bar, they produce beam, plate, and sheet steel. On the steel products side, we do cold finish, highway and agricultural steel. Like I said, the metal building systems. There's rebar fabrication, rebar distribution through those divisions. The joist, which is the Volcraft. There's decking, which is also Volcraft. There's fasteners, which can be from like the grade 5, which you buy in your hardware stores, or like they're in the bridges and the DOT projects throughout our country. So it's pretty proud there. There's also Nucor grading, piling, pipe and tube, abrasive resistant solutions, and wire products. And then the acquisition that I spoke of, the raw material side, which is that DJJ, buying that steel, those old cars, those old refrigerators, recycling them, and then having that steel to resell to those steel mills to, again, make the steel, make those steel products. It's that cycle that Nucor has. Nucor has many competitors, and that's actually based on what that product is, whether it be that steel or those products, or even the raw material sector. Yet, for the steel competition, Steel Dynamics is one of the largest. They're actually located right here in DeKalb County as well, and everybody in this area knows who Steel Dynamics is. And actually, in the steel, they're becoming a very strong competitor as well. Gerdau Ameristeel is another competitor. And then there's Arconic, Illinois Toolworks, Blue Scope Steel, Cummins, United States Steel, and Dow Chemical. So those are some of the main competition that Nucor goes to battle with in the marketplace. I'm going to discuss today who Nucor is. Today there's 25,000 teammates that work for Nucor and those Nucor family brands, and that comes in at over 300 operating facilities. And that has given Nucor many renowned claims throughout the marketplace. Nucor is the #1 North American market leader in steel, structural steel, rebar, steel merchant bar steel, cold finished bar steel, steel joist, steel deck, rebar fab and distribution, steel piling, and metal buildings. #1 in those markets. They're also the #1 North American recycler. That's something pretty proud to hang on your hat. #2 in the North American leader market. They come in with plate steel, SBQ bar steel, hollow structural section steel, steel tubing, and electrical conduit pipe. And then they come in at #3 for the sheet steel. So as you look at the map on this slide, you're going to see where those divisions are located. They're proud, they're strong, they're throughout that country. And then, like I said, we have some of those in those other countries that we have going on as well. So just strong company. As you go into the New York Stock Exchange, you look at Nucor and think, why would investors consider Nucor? And on the ticker, Nucor is NUE. And I think people and investors see that strong, stable investment, and those notables stand out with Nucor. Nucor Corporation is stated as the largest iron and steel company by market cap on the New York Stock Exchange. They are ranked 151st in the Fortune 500 list of America's largest companies, with more than $20 billion in revenue, and that was in 2018. Investors have to look at that and think, wow, okay, I think maybe I need to place some of my money in that stock. They were also entered into the Industry Week's largest 1,000 manufacturers, and they come in at the 237th place for total revenue in December of 2018. And for stockholders' equity, which is, okay, let's be honest, that's where people are looking. When they invest in a stock, they want money back. And Nucor can say, hey, you know what? For 45 years in a row, although that growth may be average, it's less than 2% on that return over the past 5 years, but they are giving money back to their investors. And that company has returned more than $8.5 billion to their shareholders throughout these 45 years. And that's through dividends and share repurchases since 2006. So that is a stat that I think investors would look at and say, yep, you know what? I want to be involved in this. This company is growing. They're diversifying. They make smart choices and are definitely, tapping in to those opportunities. The stock actually was rated as a mid-grade investment at the close of 2018. There's some mixed ratings there. There's some mixed ratings of maybe to buy now or hold those stocks and not sell them. So there's some mixed ratings there, but I still think that the investment, as you read through the reviews, is something that the investors are taking a look at. And that would be shown through the world's largest provider of mutual funds and the second largest of exchange traded funds recently increased their investment in Nucor, and they purchased over 1 million shares. The name of that company is Vanguard Group, and that's a very well-known company on the New York Stock Exchange. And like I said, they did just invest hugely in Nucor Corporation. Their income statements and their balance sheets are strong and stable, and that's what investors look at. So when people take a look at investing in Nucor, they're going to see some positive things there. We're going to move on to the leadership of Nucor, who drives that steel ship. His name is Mr. John Ferriola, and he's been the CEO of Nucor since January of 2013. He's served in this market and in Nucor for many years, many different capacities. I know this slide is busy, but I had to share with you the history so you understand, like I said, who's driving the ship, who's making these decisions for this company that's growing and diversifying and making such smart choices. So just looking at, he's not just involved in Nucor and has been and moved up the ranks of the company, which is something they truly believe in, investing in their employees and moving them up those ranks. He's also involved in the industry. He's been the chairman of the World Steel Industry and on that board of directors for many years. He's in the National Association of Manufacturers because, like I said, that's super important to Nucor to keep U.S. manufacturers in business and not have all of our goods in this country just coming from what we import, keeping our people working, going to work every day, investing in U.S. companies and U.S. manufacturers. So he's a strong component for that. 30-year involvement in the American Iron and Steel Institute because he is an engineer at hand, so he knows his stuff. Throughout his reign, Mr. Ferriola has some very strong indicators of his reign. The PF's growth has grown from 46.1 in 2014 to 65% in 2017. Revenue growth from 10.8 in 2014 to 25% in 2017. Like I talked about the return on equity for those investors, 9.2 in 2014 to 15.2 in 2017. You see that growth, it just is a theme for this leader. Operating margins huge for manufacturers, and it has grown from 6.5 to 8.6 in 2017. This man has created and continued upon what Ken Iverson has laid that groundwork way back in his reign and his development. But Mr. Ferriola has created and kept that culture strong. and pushing through every teammate and customer and interaction, because those things matter to Nucor. As I talked about culture, we're going to move into that next slide, that is safety. The culture of Nucor, boy, safety is the root of all things for this U.S. manufacturer. In every meeting, every discussion, every document you're going to see that's published for Nucor, the number one topic is going to be safety at their divisions and for their employees. Being an employee of the Nucor division, we talk in every meeting, like I said, first and foremost about safety, and not just at work, about taking it home to our family, and ingraining and preaching, I guess you want to say, to the teammates that we want you to come to work safe, and we want you to go home safe. We want you to come home how you came in to work, and go home to your family, your children, and what matters most. And I think that shows. I mean, this chart shows you, in 2017, showing you in those business groups, in those same sectors that we function and manufacture in, our safety rate is over half, almost always half of the nationwide figure. And John Ferriola hangs his hat on that. He loves that. He talks about it all the time because, like I said, it is number one to the corporation. Continuing on that culture, I'm going to go into, like I said, we have lobbyists in Washington, D.C. Because Nucor's strong culture goes into free trade and that level playing field. They believe that U.S. manufacturers should be able to do business here in the United States with a level trading playing field that those importers are able to do. When they're dumping steel into the U.S., that only hurts the U.S. manufacturer. That's not just for steel. It's for every U.S. manufacturer. They're battling what those foreign countries are able to bring in at cheap, no tariffs, no nothing, and they can sell that for cheap. And who gets hurt in that? The U.S. manufacturers and the U.S. worker. So Nucor is constantly battling with our trade commission to make them understand, to support the American worker and the American company. So, if you go to the Nucor website, you're going to see on a level playing field, American manufacturers can't compete with anybody in the world. We just need to be able to enforce those rules on trade, prevent the dumping in illegal subsidiaries, ensured to keep our companies healthy and actually our global economy healthy. Not just for those manufacturers, but our economy in general. So that's just a huge factor in the Nucor culture, and they preach that actually to their employees to stand on that, and that we share that with people any chance we get. And actually, President Trump came into office, and he's a businessman, so he understands that. And the lobbyists were able to talk to him and say, take a look at this. You're a businessman. If you look through and understand how this affects the U.S. company, the U.S. worker, and he got it. I mean, he gets it. So President Trump did take a look at that Section 232 in the Trade Expansion Act that's been there since 1962, but presidents didn't dig into it. They weren't strong enough to say, you know what, I'm going to make a difference for our country and for our U.S. workers, our U.S. companies. So as a result of President Trump's actions in March of 2018, he went ahead and said, okay, we're going to do this. For the steel sector, he went ahead and placed a 25% tariff on steel products and a 10% tariff on certain aluminum products. There are some companies and some products that are excluded from this. And you'll see that on this slide. It talks about countries as Argentina, Australia, Brazil, and South Korea. They have some exceptions. But the big hitters that do all the illegal dumping and are being affected by this 25% tariff, there's the Chinas of the world, that they don't play on those level playing fields that we're talking about. So President Trump did pass this, and it is making a difference. Nucor and other steel manufacturers have been able to raise their price for the first time in many years to the equivalent of 25%, because now we're equal and we go to the marketplace equal. So making a big, huge difference for those U.S. manufacturers. As we begin to wrap up and conclude, let's look at some of Nucor's strengths and weaknesses. On the strength side, the company has a strong presence in the New York Stock Exchange. And as I talked about their strong financial backbone, they're considered market leaders in many other product profiles. That's a huge strength. Next, we're going to go into the company continues to aggressively grow by acquisitions and reinvestments into their divisions, and that's making the stockholders see that difference. The acquisition of DJJ and its affiliates has allowed Nucor to control that supply chain, as I talked about earlier, completing that cycle of grabbing that steel, recycling it, reselling it to the sister divisions, and then making their products and their steel and reselling it out into the marketplace. That is a huge, huge strength to be able to control your own destiny. So, and Nucor is able to do that. On the weakness side, they do have that, like I said, that continual battle with the U.S. Commerce Department and those trade laws. Who's to say the next president that we elect in doesn't just revert back to what we've done for years and remove that trade tariff that's there now and is allowing Nucor and other steel manufacturers to be able to play on that level playing ground. So it's a huge weakness for the future for Nucor because you just don't know. The competition of Nucor, they could easily copycat the mini mills that Nucor created, and that can be done, and it has been done. Steel Dynamics is doing it. They did it here in Nucor's backyard. Like I said, we had 4 divisions of Nucor here in DeKalb County, and they placed their first steel mill here in DeKalb County. Steel Dynamics originators were Nucor employees. Keith Bussey worked for Nucor. He knew how it worked. And what did he do? He stepped off, broke off, and copycatted it. So that's a weakness for Nucor, for people to step away and copy that culture, copy what they're doing, and then be a thorn in Nucor's side. That's a weakness for sure. The other thing is Nucor may be stable, and that stock is stable, but the presence of that payout, like I said, even though it's solid and it's been there, it's not a huge payout. So there could be some lack of interest for investors there because it's not a big moneymaker. It's not putting lots of money in your pocket. Stability for the long haul, it's a great investment, but if somebody who's wanting to make quick money, that investment isn't going to grow, isn't going to pull in a lot of investors. The recommendations that I see for Nucor through this business research that I've done, just keep moving forward, Nucor, doing what you're doing because it's worked. Your history, is your indicator of what you're doing. Of course, you want to keep that plan to diversify and broaden that product breadth is great. It's working. Keep doing it. So, through acquisitions, I see that as being a huge feather in your cap. So number one, that's going to be there. Keep growing, keep doing. And now looking at all of those acquired divisions and the divisions that maybe you built from ground up, you can invest in those. You got to keep those up to date, keeping up that latest technology. Invest in those places so they are strong and they continue to give you profits. So that's one thing, one of the recommendations I see for Nucor Corporation. One of the other recommendations I see for Nucor, and to the next slide, is the executive team. You've got 9 gentlemen here, okay? And as you look at their titles and their reigns, there's 74 years of combined experience here as an executive Nucor team member. That's averaging about 8 years throughout that team. That's great, but you've got to look towards the future. The succession plans for a company are huge. So being able to get some leaders, in the background, making sure that your past is maybe mean and lean, and they focused on that a lot. But you've got to get some layers in there. And I feel like they're doing that. I see that in some of the progression of the teammates. They're educating and focusing on the teammates and the team development and I see those those layers being joined, and I guess that's a great recommendation that I see, is to keep building that strong leadership team. So that's a recommendation I thought was huge, will hugely play in the success of Nucor. In conclusion, Nucor can hang their hat on the past success stories that they've done, their acquisitions, and their greenfield projects. And the mini mill was their plan, their development. They've changed the face of what steel development is, the technology. Yet the future does remain strong. But again, those 300 locations, those 25,000 teammates, they require reinvestment. You've got to keep shoving the time in those people and those locations, and keep that engagement there, because although you're acquiring and growing, you've got to keep that solid foundation that you have there strong as well. So, invest in the teammates, invest in those locations, and keep that Nucor proud mentality that you've had for years there. It has to remain. So invest in the future of the company by investing in your team. Thank you for your time today. I hope you now maybe want to look at Nucor a little bit more, and maybe think of investing in the stock purchase of Nucor. I do it. It's part of my retirement plan, and hopefully you can look into it as well. I've truly enjoyed sharing Nucor with you, and I hope you look into it as well. Take care. God bless.